Good morning, students. Today we will learn about national liberation movements in the colonies.
This map points the countries of Europe, Asia, Africa and Australia. The pink regions are the colonies of Britain, which include India, Egypt and Nigeria, etc. The blue-colored places like Vietnam, Algeria, etc. are the colonies of France. The light brown-colored places including Indonesia are the colonies of Holland. The countries in grey color are the countries of Asia and Africa like China, Nepal, Afghanistan, Iran and Ethiopia, etc., which continued to be independent.
Although these countries continued to be independent, it was just namesake. These countries were under the control of a number of colonial powers. The European powers held their sway over many nations in the world. So, in today's class, let us learn about the struggles of the colonies like China, Vietnam and Nigeria and their history of freedom. These countries had people who spoke different languages or followed different religions and never thought of themselves as one nation. In addition, these countries were ruled by kings or queens who were not in favor of democracy or freedom. Only when the new movements like nationalism, democracy and socialism took birth in Europe did they get inspired. So, now let us see the struggles of various countries and also our country and understand how the lives of millions of people across the world were transformed. First, let us travel to China and know their experience. China went through two phases.
One was the phase where the Republic was established in China and the second phase in which democracy was established. At the turn of the 20th century, the country of China was ruled by the rulers of the Manchu dynasty. Eventually, the dynasty became powerless and failed to defend the interests of China to counter the Western colonial powers.
As a result, the common people and administrators of the empire were unhappy with the state of issues then. Many revolts were undertaken by the people and attempts of reform were taken by the administrators.
Amidst all the chaos, the Manchu Empire was brought down and a republic was established in the year 1911 under the rule of Sun Yat-sen. He was unanimously known as the founder of the modern China. Sun Yat-sen came from a poor family and got educated in missionary schools. This is where he learnt about democracy and Christianity. Although he studied medicine, he was very much bothered about the state of affairs in China.
The program of Sun Yat-sen was called the Three Principles or San Min Chui. The three principles include nationalism, democracy and socialism.
While nationalism dealt with bringing down the Manchu dynasty and other foreign imperialists, the principle of democracy meant establishing democratic government. The principle of socialism dealt with regulation of capital and equalizing landholdings.
The political and social situation remained unstable in the country.
On the 4th of May 1919, a demonstration was undertaken in the city of Beijing as a protest against the decisions of the post-First World War Peace Conference. Although China was on the side of the victorious allies of the World War I like Britain, it did not get back its territories that were seized. The movement came to be known as May 4th Movement, and it called for attacking tradition and saving China through modern science, democracy and nationalism. The revolutionaries demanded driving out the foreigners who controlled China's resources, removing inequalities and reducing poverty. In addition, they urged for reforms like use of simple language for writing, abolishing the practice of foot binding and subordination of women, equality in marriage and economic development to put an end to poverty. The Kuomintang, which is the National People's Party, and the Chinese Communist Party came out as major forces who struggled to make the country united and bring stability. The ideas of Sun Yat-sen drove the political philosophy of Kuomintang.
In addition, clothing, food, housing and transportation were identified as the four great needs.
Chiang Kai-shek ruled China between 1887 and 1975 as the leader of Kuomintang after the death of Sun Yat-sen. He introduced a military campaign to control the warlords, regional leaders who took over the authority, and to eliminate communists.
In other words, Chiang Kai-shek tried to militarize the nation. According to him, the people were to develop a habit and instinct for unified behavior. In addition, he supported women to instill in them the virtues of chastity, appearance, speech and work, and also recognize their role as bound to the household. Students, it might be surprising, but even the hemlines of the women's dresses were prescribed. Such was the rule of Chiang Kai-shek. The social base of the Kuomintang was in the urban areas. The industrial growth was slow and limited.
An industrial working class of nearly 5 lakhs appeared by 1919 in cities like Shanghai, which have now become centers of growth in the modern world. In the 5 lakhs, only a small percentage worked in modern industries like shipbuilding. Most others were petty urbanites, popularly known as Xiao Shimin in Chinese, traders and shopkeepers. The urban workers, especially women, earned very low wages.
Added to that, the workers had to work for long hours and the working conditions were bad. As individualism or personal independence increased, there was an increased concern about women's rights, ways to build family and discussion about love and romance. For example, there was also social and cultural change through spread of schools and universities.
Peking University was established in 1902. In addition, journalism expanded, which points the growing attraction of the new thinking.
Amidst all this, the Kuomintang failed to unite the country in spite of the many attempts. Students, can you tell why it failed? It failed because of its narrow social base and its limited political vision.
The party also ignored the main point of their party of regulating capital and equalizing land. The party neglected the peasants and the increasing social inequalities.
Like we have seen, there was more emphasis on imposing a military order rather than dealing with the problems of the people. Students, now let us have a look at the rise of Communist Party of China and its role.
It was in the year 1937 that Japan invaded China and the Kuomintang withdrew. The war, which went on for so long, weakened China. As a result, the prices increased 30% per month between 1945 and 1949, which completely disturbed the lives of the common people. On the other hand, the rural China faced two kinds of crises. While one was ecological, which dealt with soil exhaustion, deforestation and floods, the second one was socio-economic crisis, which was the result of exploiting land tenure systems, indebtedness, primitive technologies, and poor communications. The Chinese Communist Party was founded in 1921, immediately after the Russian Revolution. The success of the Russian Revolution had a powerful influence around the world. the leaders like Lenin established the Comintern in March 1918, which was to help bring a world government that would end exploitation. The Comintern, along with the Soviet Union, was in support of the communist parties around the world, but they worked within the traditional Marxist understanding that the working class in cities would bring about a revolution.
The initial appeal of this was very immense across the boundaries, although it later became an instrument for Soviet interests. It came to an end in the year 1943.
Mao Zedong, who rose as a major CCP leader, took a new direction by forcing his revolutionary programs on the peasantry. The success of Mao Zedong made the CCP a powerful political force which eventually won against the Kuomintang. Students, the radical approach of Mao was seen in Jiangxi, a place where they camped between 1928 and 1934 to protect themselves from the attack of Kuomintang.
A strong peasants' council or Soviet was organized, which was united through confiscation of land and its redistribution.
The great leader Mao, unlike the other leaders, emphasized the need for an independent government and army.
His awareness of women's problems led him to support the emergence of Rural Women's Association. In addition, he announced a new marriage law that avoided arranged marriages, stopped sale and purchase of marriage contracts, and simplified divorce. Students, the blockade of the Kuomintangs of the Soviet of the Communists forced the party to go for another base.
As a result, they took to long march between 1934 and 35 of 6,000 difficult miles to Shaanxi, which was their new base. In the new base in Yana, they developed the program to end warlordism and carry out land reforms and fight against foreign imperialism, which earned them a strong social base. Between 1937 and 1945, Japan attacked and occupied some major portions of China. They also tried to impose a barbaric colonial military rule over China, which affected the economy of China immensely. Both Kuomintang and CCP tried to join forces to fight against Japan. In August 1945, after Japan surrendered to China, Kuomintang and CCP, they came into an all-out warfare with each other for control over China. The CCP emerged successful and hence established its rule over mainland China, while Kuomintang was forced to set up its government on the island of Taiwan.
Students, now let us have a look at the second phase in China in which a new democracy was established.
In 1949, the People's Republic of China established its government based on the principles of the new democracy. It was an alliance of all the social classes that opposed landlordism and imperialism.
Some very important areas of the economy were put under the control of the government. The CCP carried out large-scale land reform measures through which land was taken away from the landlords and distributed to the poor peasants. The new government also tried to enact laws for protection of women, the rights of women, and to abolish polygamy or one person getting married to more than once. Students, as a result, the women began to take up new roles and experience equal status at par with men in various fields. Students, after a couple of years of comparatively peaceful measures to understand the rural situation and forming peasant associations, etc., proper land reform was launched between 1950 and 1951.
Some of the major steps of this initiative are class identification of all village inhabitants, confiscation and redistribution of landlords, land and productive property.
The major work in this process was played by the work teams that were sent by the country level land reform committees. Students, one of the main functions of these teams was
setting up peasant associations and selecting activists for the local leadership positions, who were mainly poor peasants and middle peasants. The middle peasants in many areas, due to their skills, were able to dominate. The work teams also tried to mobilize the entire village against the landlords through mass meetings and trials. As a result of these measures, the landlords were subjected to public humiliation, while the trials resulted in execution of the landlords to a large extent, nearly 10 to 20 lakh individuals. When we try to look at the success of the land reform program, it succeeded in redistributing nearly 43% of the cultivated land in China to about 60% of the rural population. As a result, the poor peasants were able to significantly increase their holdings. But, as we have seen earlier, the dominance of the middle peasants helped only them to benefit most.
The economic assets of the old elite or the upper class were taken away, and this resulted in the creation of a new elite class comprising the village cadres who came from poor and middle class. These people were brought in due to the efforts of CCP.
With an idea to spread literacy and political education, adult peasant schools were set up along with the measures of land reforms. In addition, primary schools were established for the young children and adults in all the villages.